3 years. For 3 years, Maya Santos watched him from across dinner tables, stealing glances when she thought no one was looking, her heart racing every time his deep voice filled the room. 3 years of pretending her best friend's father was just another adult in her life, when the truth was that Daniel Harrington had occupied her thoughts in ways that made her blush in the darkness of her bedroom. 3 years of telling herself it was just a crush, just admiration, just the foolish feelings of a girl who didn't know better. But the night of her 19th birthday, when he cornered her on the balcony of his penthouse and looked at her with those storm-gray eyes that saw everything she'd been trying to hide, Maya realized this was so much more than a crush. And from the way his hands trembled as he reached out to touch her face, she knew he felt it too. If you want to discover how a forbidden attraction between a 19-year-old college student and a 45-year-old CEO transformed into a love that defied every rule and expectation, subscribe to the channel now. Leave a like if you believe real desire has nothing to do with age and everything to do with souls recognizing each other. And tell me in the comments, where are you listening to this story from? Your support means everything. The summer air in Manhattan was thick and heavy, the kind that made clothes stick to skin and turned the city into a glittering oven of concrete and ambition. Maya stood in the corner of the Harrington penthouse, nursing a glass of champagne she was barely old enough to drink legally, watching the party swirl around her like a kaleidoscope of designer dresses and expensive cologne. It was supposed to be her celebration, her 19th birthday, but Sophie Harrington had insisted on throwing her this elaborate party, inviting half of Columbia University and filling her father's penthouse with people Maya barely knew. Sophie meant well, she always did. They'd been roommates since freshman year, and Sophie had taken Maya under her wing from day one. This girl from a small town in New Jersey who'd earned a full scholarship and arrived in New York with 2 suitcases and dreams bigger than her bank account. But right now, Maya wished she was anywhere else. Anywhere except in this room where she had to pretend not to notice him. Daniel Harrington stood near the floor-to-ceiling windows, the Manhattan skyline spreading behind him like a crown of lights. At 45, he was the kind of man who made time itself seem irrelevant. Silver threaded through his dark hair at the temples, adding distinction rather than age. His charcoal suit was custom-tailored, fitting his broad shoulders and lean frame with the precision that only serious money could buy. But it was his eyes that undid her. Those gray eyes that could be cold as winter steel in business meetings she'd glimpsed when visiting Sophie, but that sometimes, when he looked at Maya, seemed to hold entire storms of unspoken things. He was talking to some business associates, his posture relaxed but commanding, the natural stance of someone who'd built an empire from nothing and now controlled it with an iron fist wrapped in elegant manners. Maya had heard the stories from Sophie, how Daniel had started with a single construction company at 25 and turned it into Harrington Global, how he'd been married to Sophie's mother for 15 years before she died of cancer when Sophie was 12, how he'd never remarried, never even seriously dated, throwing himself into work and raising his daughter alone. He was legendary in business circles, ruthless, brilliant, untouchable. And Maya had been helplessly, hopelessly drawn to him since the first time Sophie brought her home for Thanksgiving dinner 3 years ago. She remembered that night with painful clarity. She'd been 16, awkward, overwhelmed by the Harrington wealth and sophistication. Daniel had shaken her hand, and the touch had sent electricity straight through her body. He'd asked her about her studies, really listened to her answers, treated her opinions with a respect that made her feel seen in a way she'd never experienced before. And she'd gone home that weekend and cried into her pillow because she knew, even at 16, that what she felt for this man was dangerous. Now, 3 years later, the feeling had only grown stronger, deeper, more impossible to ignore. Maya, there you are. Sophie appeared at her elbow, slightly tipsy, her blonde hair perfect, even in the humidity, wearing a dress that cost more than Maya's entire semester's expenses. Come on, Dad wants to make a toast. Oh, Sophie, that's not necessary. It is absolutely necessary. You're 19. You're officially an adult. This is huge. Sophie grabbed her hand, pulling her through the crowd. Maya's heart hammered as they approached Daniel. He turned as they neared, and his eyes met Maya's for just a fraction of a second. But in that fraction, she saw it. The same thing she'd been seeing more and more lately in unguarded moments. Heat. Interest. Conflict. Then his expression smoothed into the pleasant smile of an indulgent father, and Maya wondered if she'd imagined it all. Everyone. Daniel's voice cut through the party chatter, commanding attention without effort. I want to make a toast to Maya Santos, who my daughter has been lucky enough to call her best friend for the past 3 years. The room quieted, all eyes turning to her. Maya felt her cheeks burn. Maya arrived at Columbia with nothing but a scholarship and determination. Daniel continued, his eyes on her, holding her gaze in a way that made it hard to breathe. In 3 years, she's maintained a perfect GPA while working 2 part-time jobs. She's tutored my daughter through classes Sophie would have failed without her. His lips curved in a slight smile, and she's brought something into this house that's been missing for a long time. Warmth. Kindness. A reminder that success means nothing if you forget to be a good human being. The sincerity in his voice made Maya's throat tight. Sophie was beaming, oblivious to the undercurrents crackling in the air. To Maya, Daniel raised his glass. May 19 be the year you stop living by everyone else's rules and start discovering what you really want. The words seemed aimed directly at her soul. The crowd cheered, glasses clinked, and the party resumed its swirl. But Maya stood frozen, Daniel's words echoing in her mind what she really wanted. God, if he only knew. If anyone knew. The party stretched on for hours. Maya smiled, thanked people for birthday wishes she didn't want, and counted the minutes until she could escape to the guest room Sophie had insisted she stay in tonight. It was nearly midnight when she finally slipped away, but instead of heading to the bedroom, she found herself drawn to the balcony, desperate for air, for space, for a moment alone to process the strange tension that had been building in her chest all night. The balcony wrapped around the entire penthouse, offering 360-degree views of Manhattan at night. Maya leaned against the railing, letting the hot breeze wash over her, watching the city pulse with light and life below. She closed her eyes, trying to calm her racing heart, trying not to think about Daniel's toast, about the way he'd looked at her, about the impossible feelings that had been consuming her for 3 years. I thought I might find you here. Maya's eyes flew open, her breath catching. Daniel stood in the balcony doorway, his jacket discarded, his shirt sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms. He held 2 glasses of champagne, and the way the city lights played across his features made him look like something out of a dream. Dangerous and beautiful, and entirely off limits. I needed some air, Maya managed, her voice barely steady. The party was a bit much. Daniel crossed to the railing, maintaining a careful distance but close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and masculine that made her dizzy. Sophie means well. She wanted you to feel celebrated. I know. And I'm grateful. I'm not used to this. She gestured vaguely at the penthouse, the party, the world of wealth and privilege that would never truly be hers. Daniel was quiet for a moment, studying the city below. When I was 19, I was working 3 construction jobs and sleeping in a room the size of Sophie's closet. I understand feeling out of place in all this more than you might think. Maya looked at him, surprised. Sophie told me you built everything yourself, but she never mentioned that I came from nothing? Daniel's smile was wry. I don't advertise it. People prefer to think success is somehow innate, that those of us who have money were always destined for it. The truth is messier. I was hungry, desperate, willing to work harder than anyone else because I had no other choice. That's how you feel, Maya said softly. Like you're still that hungry kid, even when you're standing in a penthouse that overlooks the entire city. Daniel turned to her, and something in his expression shifted, became more open, more vulnerable than she'd ever seen. "How did you know that?" "Because I see you." The words came out before Maya could stop them. "I've been watching you for 3 years. And I see you." Not the CEO. Not Sophie's father. Not the billionaire everyone talks about. I see the man who works until 3 in the morning because he's terrified of failing. Who looks at his daughter with this fierce protective love that's almost painful to witness. Who stands at windows late at night, looking out at the city like he's still trying to figure out if he deserves to be here. The silence that followed was deafening. Daniel stared at her, his carefully controlled expression cracking, something raw and hungry breaking through. "Maya," he said, his voice rough. "You shouldn't say things like that to me." "Why not?" "Because you're 19 years old. Because you're my daughter's best friend. Because I'm old enough to be your father." Her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. "Are those the only reasons?" "What? Are those the only reasons you're giving me?" "Because they're all about what other people think. About rules and expectations and age differences. They're not about what you feel." Daniel's jaw tightened. "What I feel is irrelevant." "Is it?" Maya took a step closer, emboldened by champagne and 3 years of suppressed longing. "Because I've spent 3 years thinking I was crazy, that I was imagining the way you look at me sometimes. The way your hand lingers when you pass me something at dinner. The way you always ask about my classes, my thoughts, my dreams, like you genuinely care what I think." "Maya, stop." "No." She took another step. "I've spent 3 years hating myself for feeling something for you, telling myself it was wrong, inappropriate, impossible. And maybe it is all of those things. But I need to know if I'm alone in this, or if you feel it too." "I can't." Daniel's voice was strained. "You don't understand what you're asking. I'm asking if you feel what I feel when we're in the same room. If your heart races the way mine does. If you lie awake at night thinking about things that could never happen. I'm asking if I'm the only one drowning here." The raw honesty in her voice seemed to break something in him. His careful control shattered, and suddenly he was moving, closing the distance between them, his hands coming up to frame her face with a gentleness that contrasted with the intensity in his eyes. "You're not alone," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "God help me. You're not alone. I've been fighting this for over a year, telling myself you were too young, that it was wrong, that I was a monster for even noticing how beautiful you are, how brilliant, how you light up every room you enter." "A year?" Maya breathed. "More. But it got impossible about a year ago. When you turned 18 and I could no longer even pretend to myself that the way I felt was somehow paternal or appropriate. When I realized I wasn't looking at you like a father figure but like a man who wanted things he had no right to want." "What things?" Maya whispered, her hands coming up to rest on his chest, feeling his heart hammering beneath her palms. "This," Daniel said, and kissed her. The world exploded into sensation. His lips were soft but demanding, claiming her mouth with a hunger that matched her own. Maya made a sound somewhere between a gasp and a moan, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. Daniel's arms wrapped around her, one hand tangling in her hair, the other pressed against the small of her back, and Maya had never felt anything so perfect, so right, so absolutely inevitable. The kiss deepened, years of suppressed desire pouring out in the way they moved together, the way Maya rose on her toes to get closer, the way Daniel's hands tightened on her as if he couldn't bear to let go. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Daniel rested his forehead against hers, his eyes closed, his expression tortured. "We can't do this." "Why?" "Because everything I said before, because you're 19, because I'm 45, because you're Sophie's best friend, because the world will judge us, will say terrible things, because I should be strong enough to walk away." "But you don't want to walk away." Maya said softly, her hand still pressed against his chest, feeling every rapid beat of his heart. No, Daniel admitted, his voice raw with honesty. I don't want to walk away. I've wanted to kiss you for so long I've lost count of the nights I've lain awake hating myself for it. Then don't walk away. Maya, you don't understand what you're asking for. Yes, I do. I'm asking for you to stop treating me like a child who doesn't know her own mind. I'm asking for you to acknowledge that chemistry doesn't care about age or appropriateness or what other people think. I'm asking for you to be honest about what this is. And what is this? Daniel pulled back slightly, searching her face. I don't know. But I know it's real. I know I've never felt this way about anyone. I know that when you walk into a room, everything else disappears. I know that your voice is the first thing I want to hear in the morning, and the last thing I want to hear at night. I know that I understand you in ways that terrify me because they feel so intimate, so deep, like we've known each other for lifetimes instead of 3 years. Daniel's thumb traced her cheekbone, his touch reverent. You're so young. You have your whole life ahead of you. The world is opening up for you. And you think I should be with some college boy who doesn't see me the way you do? Who wants to get drunk at frat parties and play games? I've never been interested in boys my age, Daniel. They're children. You're a man. There's a difference. I'm too old for you. You're experienced where I'm not. You're established where I'm still finding my way. You're confident where I'm still learning. But none of that means we're wrong for each other. Maybe it means we're exactly what each other needs. Daniel laughed, but it was a pained sound. You have an answer for everything. I've had 3 years to think about this. He grew serious again, his hand still holding her face. If we do this, if we cross this line, there's no going back. Sophie will hate me. She might hate both of us. People will judge you. Will say terrible things. They'll say I'm taking advantage of you, that I'm a predator, that you're naive. It will be hard. It will be complicated. Are you willing to risk all of that? Maya met his gaze without flinching. Are you? The question hung between them, heavy with possibility. The party continued inside, music and laughter filtering out to the balcony. But in this moment, they were in their own world, balanced on the edge of a decision that would change everything. I don't know, Daniel said finally honestly. I don't know if I'm strong enough to do the right thing. Or brave enough to do the wrong thing that feels so incredibly right. Then let me be brave for both of us, Maya said. She kissed him this time, pouring 3 years of longing into it, and Daniel's resistance crumbled. He kissed her back with an intensity that made her knees weak, his hands moving from her face to her waist, pulling her flush against him. This is insane, he murmured against her lips. Completely insane. I know. We should stop. We should. But neither of them pulled away. They stood there on the balcony, kissing like they were the only two people in the world, like age and propriety and consequences didn't exist, like desire was enough to rewrite all the rules. When they finally broke apart, both flushed and breathing hard, Daniel looked at her with an expression that mixed want with worry. We need to talk about this. Really talk, not just kiss and pretend everything will work itself out. Okay. Maya agreed. Talk to me. Not here. Not tonight. With Sophie just inside in a house full of people. Tomorrow. Come to my office tomorrow afternoon. We'll talk about what this means, what we want, what's possible. And if we can't figure out a way forward that protects you, then we walk away, Maya said, though the words felt like glass in her throat. If you genuinely believe this will hurt me more than help me, if you can't find a way to let yourself have this, then we walk away. But I need you to really think about it, Daniel. Don't just give me the answer you think you should give. Give me the honest answer. He nodded slowly. Fair enough. They stood there for another moment, neither wanting to let go, both knowing they had to. Finally, Daniel stepped back, his hand trailing down her arm to squeeze her fingers once before letting go entirely. Happy birthday, Maya. Thank you. For what? For seeing me. For being brave enough to say something. For making me feel less alone in this. You're not alone, Maya promised. Whatever we decide, whatever happens, you're not alone. Daniel's smile was sad and hopeful at the same time. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. My office. I'll be there. He turned to leave, then paused at the doorway. Maya? Yes? For what it's worth, I'm glad you were born. Even if this is complicated, even if it's terrifying, I'm glad you exist. I'm glad you walked into my life. I'm glad you see me. Me too, Maya whispered. About you, I mean. Then he was gone, disappearing back into the party, leaving Maya alone on the balcony with her racing heart and trembling hands. She touched her lips, still feeling the pressure of his kiss, still tasting champagne and possibility. Tomorrow. Everything would change tomorrow. Either they'd find a way forward, or they'd end this before it truly began. But tonight, for this moment, Maya let herself feel the joy, the terror, the absolute certainty that whatever happened next, she'd been right to speak up. She'd been right to be brave. Because the way Daniel had kissed her, the way he'd looked at her, the way his hands had trembled when he touched her face, that was real. That was worth fighting for, even if the whole world said it was wrong. Maya didn't sleep that night. She lay in the guest room, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment on the balcony. The way Daniel's eyes had darkened when she stepped closer, the heat of his hands on her face, the barely controlled hunger in his kiss. She touched her lips again, still feeling the ghost of his mouth on hers, and wondered how she was supposed to go back to normal after this. How was she supposed to sit across from him at dinner and pretend she didn't know exactly how he tasted? The morning came too slowly and too fast. Sophie burst into the room at 9, chipper despite what must have been very little sleep, carrying coffee and a bag of croissants from the French bakery on the corner. Morning. Birthday girl. How's the head? Fine, Maya lied, sitting up. I didn't drink that much. Good, because we're going shopping. Dad gave me his black card and explicit instructions to make sure you get something nice. Sophie, that's too much. It's never too much. Besides, you need a proper interview outfit for those summer internships you've been applying to. Come on. Drink your coffee. We have a mission. They spent the morning in boutiques that made Maya's student budget weep. Sophie was in her element, pulling dresses and suits and shoes with the ease of someone who'd never had to check a price tag. Maya tried to enjoy it, tried to focus on her best friend's enthusiasm, but her mind kept drifting to the afternoon, to 2 p.m., to Daniel's office and the conversation that would determine everything. She found herself in a dressing room, staring at her reflection in a sleek black dress that Sophie had thrust at her. The girl looking back was 19, but didn't look it. Not anymore. There was something different in her eyes, something that had changed overnight. Knowledge. Desire. The awareness of her own power. You look amazing, Sophie said, appearing behind her. Very professional, but also, I don't know, grown up. Sophisticated. Yeah, Maya agreed softly. Grown up. They had lunch at a cafe in Soho, and Sophie chattered about the party, about people Maya barely remembered meeting, about plans for the rest of the summer, and the entire time, Maya smiled and nodded and felt like a fraud. Because she was sitting here with her best friend while planning to meet that best friend's father to discuss something that could destroy their friendship forever. I should get going, Maya said finally, checking her phone. 1:15. I have that, informational interview at 2. Oh right, the networking thing. Sophie waved her hand. Go. Dad said you could use his driver. He texted me this morning. That's okay, I'll take the subway. Maya, it's like 100 degrees out. Take the car. Dad literally said to make sure you took it. He's weirdly worried about you overheating. The thought of Daniel worrying about her made Maya's heart clench. Okay. Thanks. Sophie hugged her. Good luck with the interview. Text me after. Maya arrived at Harrington Global's offices at 10 minutes to 2. The building was all glass and steel, 50 stories of power and money and ambition. She'd been here once before, bringing Sophie something she'd forgotten, but she'd never been to the top floor, never been to Daniel's private office. The elevator ride felt endless. Maya watched the numbers climb, her reflection staring back at her from the mirrored walls. She was wearing the black dress, a professional sheath that hit just above her knee, paired with heels that made her legs look longer. She'd pulled her dark hair back in a low bun, applied subtle makeup. She looked older than 19. She looked like she belonged in this building. The elevator doors opened directly into a reception area. A woman in her 40s looked up, smiled professionally. You must be Maya Santos. Mr. Harrington is expecting you. This way. Maya followed her through the space past glass-walled conference rooms and busy assistants to a set of double doors at the end of the hall. The woman knocked once, opened the door, then stepped aside. Maya took a breath and walked in. Daniel's office was massive. The entire far wall nothing but windows overlooking Manhattan. His desk was clean, organized, everything in its place. But what caught Maya's attention was Daniel himself, standing by the windows, his back to her, hands in his pockets. He wore a different suit than last night. This one, navy blue, perfectly tailored. From this angle, he looked like a king surveying his kingdom. The door closed behind her with a soft click. Daniel turned. For a long moment, they just looked at each other across the expanse of his office. In the harsh light of day, without champagne and moonlight and the romance of the balcony, reality felt heavier. The age difference more pronounced. The risk more real. You came, Daniel said finally. You asked me to. I wasn't sure if you'd change your mind, decide it was a mistake. Did you? Daniel's jaw tightened. I've been here since 6 this morning trying to figure that out. And I still don't have an answer. Come here, Maya. She crossed to him, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. When she reached him, standing close enough to feel his body heat, she saw the exhaustion in his face, the shadows under his eyes. You didn't sleep either, she observed. How could I? Daniel reached out, then stopped himself, his hand hovering in the air between them. I keep thinking about what we did last night, what we started. I need you to understand something, Maya. I'm not a good man. People think I am because I'm successful, because I donate to charity, because I raised Sophie alone. But the truth is, I'm ruthless in business. I've destroyed competitors, bought out companies, made decisions that hurt people if they served my interests. And right now, looking at you, wanting you the way I do, I feel that same ruthlessness, that same willingness to take what I want and damn the consequences. Is that supposed to scare me? It should, because it scares me. I'm 45 years old. I have power, money, experience. You're 19, still in college, still figuring out who you are. The power imbalance alone should make this impossible, but it doesn't make what I feel less real. No, Daniel agreed. It doesn't. And that's what keeps me awake at night. Maya stepped closer, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. Then let me tell you what keeps me awake. It's not fear of you, or your power, or your money. It's fear that you'll decide I'm not worth the risk, that you'll choose the safe path, The one where you stay the untouchable CEO and I stay the young student, and we both pretend that what we feel isn't the most real thing either of us has experienced in years. Daniel's hands finally moved, one cupping her face, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. You're so young to understand these things. Stop saying that, Maya said firmly. Stop using my age as a shield. I may be 19, but I know my own mind. I know what I feel. And I know that connection like this doesn't come along often. Maybe never again. Are you really going to let it go? Because some arbitrary societal rule says we're supposed to be wrong for each other? What about Sophie? The question hung heavy between them. She's your daughter. My best friend. This will hurt her. Yes, Daniel said simply. It will. At least, at first. She might hate me. She might hate both of us. We might lose her. And you're willing to risk that? Maya's voice was small now, the full weight of the consequences settling on her shoulders. I don't know, Daniel admitted. That's what I've been wrestling with all night, all morning. Sophie is my world. She's been my world since the day she was born. The thought of causing her pain, of damaging our relationship, it's unbearable. But, and here his voice dropped, became rougher, the thought of letting you walk away, of never knowing what this could be, that's unbearable too. Maya's heart was pounding. So what do we do? Daniel was quiet for a long moment, his hand still on her face, his eyes searching hers. We're careful. We're honest. We don't rush. We give this time to develop away from Sophie's knowledge until we're sure, until we know this is real and lasting and worth the explosion that will come when she finds out. You want to keep it secret? For now. Is that cowardly? Maybe. But I need to protect my daughter. And I need to protect you. If this is just physical attraction, if it burns hot and fast and then fades, I don't want you to lose your best friend over it. I don't want Sophie to lose you either. She loves you. You're like a sister to her. And if this doesn't work out, then we end it cleanly, and no one has to know we tried. And if it does work out, then we tell her together, when we're ready, when we're sure. We face whatever comes as a united front. Maya nodded slowly, understanding the logic even as part of her rebelled against the secrecy. How long are we talking about? Daniel considered. The summer. 3 months. You're going back to campus in September. Sophie's doing that semester abroad in Paris. If what we have is real, if it survives 3 months of actually being together, getting to know each other away from the fantasy and the forbidden nature of it, then we tell her when she gets back. That's a long time to hide something like this. I know. But it's also not very long in the grand scheme of things. Maya, I need you to be sure about this. If we do this, we do it right. No sneaking around at parties. No risks of Sophie finding out accidentally. We're deliberate, careful. You come here sometimes. We have dinner. We talk. We get to know each other as people, not just as the fantasy we've built up. And the physical? Maya asked, feeling bold. What about that? Daniel's eyes darkened. That depends on you. I'm not going to push you into anything. You set the pace. You tell me what you're comfortable with. But I'll be honest, if we're alone together, if you look at me the way you're looking at me right now, it's going to be very difficult for me to keep my hands to myself. Then, don't. The words were barely out of her mouth before Daniel kissed her, and this kiss was different from last night. Less desperate, more deliberate, a slow exploration, his lips learning the shape of hers, his hands sliding into her hair to tip her head back, deepening the angle. Maya's hands fisted in his suit jacket, pulling him closer, and she understood then what he meant about ruthlessness. because she felt it too. This willingness to take and take and take, to damn every consequence if it meant having this. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Daniel rested his forehead against hers. 3 months. We have 3 months to figure out if this is real or just extraordinary chemistry. Okay, Maya agreed. 3 months. But Daniel, I already know it's real. He smiled, that rare genuine smile that transformed his entire face. So do I. But let's prove it anyway. They spent the next 2 hours talking. Really talking. Daniel told her about building his company, about the loneliness of being at the top, about raising Sophie alone and constantly worrying he was failing her. Maya told him about growing up in a small town, about the pressure of being the scholarship kid, about her dreams of making a difference, of building something meaningful. They discovered they both loved old movies, both hated pretentious art, both found peace in early morning runs before the city woke up. I should go, Maya said finally, reluctantly. Sophie will wonder where I am. Come for dinner Thursday night, Daniel said. I'll send Sophie to her mother's sister for the evening. We'll cook together. Actually cook, not order in. You cook? I'm learning. Badly. But I want to try. For you. Maya smiled. Thursday then. He walked her to the elevator, keeping careful distance now that they were back in the public space of his office. But before the doors closed, he caught her hand, squeezed once. Maya, thank you for being brave enough to say something last night, for pushing me to admit what I feel. I would have let this consume me in silence otherwise. I'm glad I did, Maya said softly. And Daniel? What I said last night? About seeing you? I meant it. I know you did. That's what makes this so terrifying and so perfect. The elevator doors closed on his smile. The summer unfolded like a secret symphony, each note played in carefully guarded moments. Maya became an expert in casual deception, in excuses that sounded plausible, in dividing her time between Sophie's friendship and Daniel's growing presence in her life. Thursday dinners became their ritual. Daniel would send Sophie away on some errand or another, and Maya would arrive at the penthouse as the sun began its descent over Manhattan. They'd cook together in his massive kitchen, Daniel following recipes with the focused intensity he brought to everything, Maya laughing at his serious approach to something as simple as pasta. But it wasn't really about the cooking. It was about the conversations that happened while they chopped vegetables and stirred sauces. The way Daniel would tell her about his day, about difficult negotiations and impossible decisions, and actually listen when she gave her perspective. The way Maya would talk about her classes, her ambitions, her fears. And he'd treat her thoughts with genuine respect, never once making her feel less than because of her age. It was about the moments when their hands would brush reaching for the same utensil, and the world would pause, about the way Daniel would stand behind her at the stove, his chest against her back, his hands over hers as he showed her some technique, and Maya would forget how to breathe. About the end of each evening when they'd end up on the couch, talking until the city lights blurred outside the windows, and the space between them would shrink and shrink until one of them gave in and they'd kiss, slow and deep and devastating. They were careful. So careful. No texts that could be misconstrued. No public meetings. Nothing that would raise Sophie's suspicions. When Sophie was around, Daniel was just her father. Appropriately distant, appropriately paternal, but the looks they exchanged, the small smiles, the way Daniel's eyes would track Maya across a room, those were their real language. By July, Maya was in too deep to pretend otherwise. She was falling in love with him, not just the fantasy version, but the real Nan. The one who got frustrated when his scrambled eggs didn't turn out right, who fell asleep during movies but pretended he'd been awake the whole time, who kept a photo of young Sophie on his desk and touched it sometimes when he thought no one was watching. Who kissed Maya like she was precious and sacred, and also like he wanted to devour her whole. The physical intimacy had developed slowly, carefully. Daniel kept his promise about letting Maya set the pace, but Maya found that pace increasing as her trust in him grew, as her desire built to a fever pitch that left her restless and aching. They'd progressed from kisses to touches, to evenings on the couch where Daniel's hands would map her body over her clothes, where Maya would straddle his lap and feel exactly how much he wanted her, where they'd rock together, fully clothed, until they were both trembling with need. But Daniel held back from more. He was determined that when they took that final step, it would be because Maya was absolutely certain, not because passion had overridden judgment. It was maddening and sweet and made her want him even more. The shift happened on a Thursday night in mid-July. They'd made dinner, or rather successfully not burned dinner, and were cleaning up, moving around the kitchen in the easy synchronicity they'd developed. Maya was washing dishes, and Daniel was drying, and she was in the middle of telling him about a difficult conversation with her mother about her future, when he said something that stopped her cold. "What if you moved in here?" Maya turned off the water, turned to face him. "What?" "After Sophie leaves for Paris. She'll be gone for 4 months. This place is too big for just me. And you're still stuck in that tiny dorm room dealing with a roommate who parties too much. You could have the guest room. We could have more time together. Actually see what a real life together looks like." "Daniel, I can't just move into your penthouse." "Why not?" "Because it's..." Maya struggled for words. "It's too much, too fast." "Is it? We've been doing this for 6 weeks now. Seeing each other multiple times a week. Building something real. Why shouldn't we actually try living in the same space?" "What would I tell Sophie?" "Tell her I offered you a room, because I have space and you need it. Tell her it's practical. She won't question it. You're her best friend. And it would give us 4 months to really know each other, before we have to tell her. 4 months of falling asleep in the same home, of having breakfast together, of building a life." Maya's heart was racing. "You've really thought about this?" "I've thought about nothing else for a week. Maya, I'm tired of stolen moments. I want to wake up and find you in my kitchen. I want to come home from work and know you're here. I want to fall asleep knowing you're just down the hall, even if we're not ready to share a bed yet. I want more of you than Thursday dinners allow. What do you want?" The question was simple, but the answer was enormous. Maya wanted everything. She wanted him, wanted this, wanted to stop pretending that a few hours a week was enough when she thought about him constantly, when she'd started organizing her entire life around these Thursday nights. "Okay," she said. "Okay? Okay. I'll move in. After Sophie leaves, we'll tell her it's practical, helpful, and we'll use those 4 months to really build this." Daniel's smile was incandescent. He set down the dish towel, crossed to her, cupped her face in his hands. "I'm falling in love with you. I know I shouldn't say it this soon. I know it's too much, too fast. But I need you to know." Tears stung Maya's eyes. "I'm falling in love with you too. I think I have been since the night on the balcony. Maybe before. Then let's stop fighting it. Let's see where this goes." He kissed her then. And it was different from all the other kisses. This one carried the weight of promises, of futures, of all the things they were admitting to wanting. Maya wrapped her arms around his neck, pressing closer, and Daniel lifted her onto the counter, stepping between her legs, his hands sliding up her thighs. "This is what real desire feels like," he murmured against her lips. "Not just physical need, but the desire to build a life with someone. To know them completely, to be known by them." "Show me," Maya breathed. "Show me all of it." Daniel pulled back slightly, his eyes searching hers. "You're sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." They didn't make it to a bedroom. Right there in the kitchen, with the lights of Manhattan glowing through the windows and half-washed dishes forgotten in the sink, Daniel showed Maya exactly what years of experience combined with genuine emotion could create. He was patient, thorough, attentive in ways that made her understand the difference between boys and men, between simple physical release and real intimacy. He learned her body like he was studying for the most important exam of his life, paid attention to every sound she made, every reaction, adjusted his approach to maximize her pleasure. And when he finally slid inside her, when Maya gasped at the stretch and the fullness and the rightness of it, Daniel held completely still, his forehead pressed to hers, giving her time to adjust. "Okay?" he asked, his voice strained with the effort of holding back. "Perfect," Maya whispered. "You feel perfect." They moved together slowly at first, learning each other's rhythms, and then faster as desire overrode caution. Daniel's hands were everywhere, holding her hips, cupping her face, tangling in her hair. Maya clung to him, overwhelmed by sensation, by emotion, by the realization that this was what she'd been missing, this connection that went beyond physical. When she came apart in his arms, his name a prayer on her lips, Daniel followed seconds later, burying his face in her neck, his entire body shuddering. Afterwards, he carried her to his bedroom, not the guest room, but his own space. They lay tangled together in his sheets, Maya's head on his chest, Daniel's fingers tracing idle patterns on her shoulder. "I should feel guilty," Maya said softly, "about Sophie, about the secrecy. But I don't. I just feel happy." Daniel kissed the top of her head. "We'll tell her soon. When she gets back from Paris, we'll sit her down together and explain. She might be angry at first, but she'll come around. She loves you both. You're her father and her best friend. Eventually she'll see that we make each other happy. I hope you're right. I have to be. Because I'm not giving you up. Not now. Not ever." They spent the night together, and it was revelation. The way Daniel held her in his sleep, protective and possessive, the way he woke her with kisses as dawn broke over the city, the way they made love again, slower this time, with the desperation gone and replaced by tenderness. Sophie left for Paris 2 weeks later. Maya helped her pack, listened to her excitement about the semester abroad, and felt guilt twist in her stomach every time Sophie talked about how glad she was that Maya would be staying in her dad's penthouse. "At least I know you'll keep him company," Sophie said. "He gets so lonely when I'm gone. He works too much. Maya, promise me you'll make sure he actually eats real food and doesn't just survive on coffee." "I promise," Maya said, and meant it. The day Sophie's plane took off, Maya moved her things into the penthouse. Not into the guest room like they'd told Sophie, but into Daniel's bedroom, into his space, into his life. Those 4 months were the happiest of Maya's life. They built routines together. Daniel would wake her early, before dawn, and they'd run together through Central Park as the city stirred to life. They'd come back sweaty and laughing, and shower together, and make love against the tile walls while the steam rose around them. Breakfast became their creative time. Daniel trying new recipes from cooking shows he'd started watching. Maya reading her textbooks at the counter and occasionally looking up to correct his technique. Work filled their days. Daniel would go to his office, and Maya would attend her classes, but they'd text throughout the day. Little things, thoughts and observations, and sometimes just, "I miss you." Evenings were for coming home to each other, for Daniel loosening his tie as he walked through the door and finding Maya curled on the couch studying, for the way she'd look up and smile, and he'd cross to her like a man drawn by magnets, for cooking dinner together, for eating at the big dining table and talking about everything and nothing, for movie nights where they'd make it 15 minutes into the film before hands started wandering, for falling asleep tangled together, secure in the knowledge that they'd wake up the same way. Daniel taught Maya about his business, genuinely interested in her perspective, sometimes bouncing ideas off her in the evening. Maya taught Daniel about her studies, about the theories she was learning, about her dreams of starting a non-profit someday. He never once made her feel young or inexperienced. Instead, he valued her insights, encouraged her ambitions, helped her think through strategies. They fought sometimes, usually about small things, but the fights were never mean. They'd argue passionately. Two stubborn people neither willing to back down, and then they'd cool off and come back together and talk through whatever the issue was. And Maya learned that making up with Daniel was its own kind of wonderful. The way he'd pull her into his arms and admit when he was wrong. The way she'd let herself be held and admit her own faults. But underneath all the happiness, there was a countdown. September was coming. Sophie would be back in October. They'd have to tell her. The secret that had seemed romantic and necessary at first now felt heavy, like a betrayal neither of them knew how to resolve. It was mid-September when everything changed. Maya was making coffee in the kitchen, wearing one of Daniel's shirts and nothing else, when her phone rang. Sophie's name flashed on the screen. Maya answered, trying to sound casual. "Hey, Soph. How's Paris?" "I'm coming home early," Sophie said. And her voice was strange. Flat. "What? Why? Are you okay? My program got cut short. Budget issues. They're sending us home in 2 days." Maya's heart stopped. 2 days? "Yeah. I'll be back this weekend. I can't wait to see you and Dad. I've missed you guys so much." "Sophie," Maya's voice caught. "There's something I need to tell you," Maya interrupted. "Something important." "What? Where are you right now?" "I'm at the apartment." "Well, I'm about to be. I'm in a cab from the airport." "Airport? I thought you said 2 days. I lied. I wanted to surprise you guys." "Sophie, wait, don't come here yet. Why not?" The front door opened. Maya's blood turned to ice. She turned slowly to see Sophie standing in the entryway, phone still at her ear, suitcase at her feet. Sophie's eyes took in the scene. Maya in her father's shirt. The coffee mugs, plural, on the counter. The obvious signs of two people living together. The way Maya's hair was messed up. The way panic was written across her face. Sophie lowered her phone. Her expression went from confusion to understanding to betrayal in the space of a heartbeat. "Maya," she said, her voice shaking. "What the hell is going on?" "I can explain. You're wearing my dad's shirt. You're in our apartment at 8 in the morning wearing his clothes. Where is he?" "Sophie, please. Where is my father?" Daniel emerged from the bedroom, dressed for work, and froze when he saw Sophie. The color drained from his face. Sophie looked between them, at her father's guilty expression, at her best friend's panicked face, at all the small domestic details that told a story she'd never wanted to know. The silence stretched, horrible and heavy. "No," Sophie finally said, her voice breaking. "No, no, no. Tell me this isn't what it looks like. Tell me you're not. That you and my dad aren't." She couldn't finish the sentence. "Sophie." Daniel started forward, but she backed away like he was dangerous. Don't come near me. Don't you dare." "We wanted to tell you." Maya tried. "We were going to tell you when you got back." "How long?" Sophie's question was sharp as broken glass. "How long has this been going on?" Sophie, Daniel said. "How long?" "Since July," Maya admitted. "Since right after you left." Sophie laughed, but it was a terrible sound. "So the whole summer?" "The whole time I was texting you both, talking to you, missing you. You were what? Playing house together? Lying to me?" "It's not like that," Daniel said. "Really? Then what's it like, Dad? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been sleeping with my 19-year-old best friend." Sounds a lot like something a predator would do. Daniel flinched like she'd struck him. "Sophie, I love her." Sophie's face went white. "You what?" "I love her," Daniel repeated, his voice steady despite the devastation in his eyes. "I know you're hurt. I know we should have told you sooner. I know this looks terrible. But I love her. And she loves me." And this isn't some sordid affair. This is real. Sophie turned to Maya, tears streaming down her face. How could you? You're my best friend. You're supposed to be my best friend. I am, Maya said desperately. I'm still your best friend. Sophie, please. No, you're not. My best friend wouldn't betray me like this. My best friend wouldn't sleep with my father. My best friend wouldn't lie to me for months. It's not a betrayal if it's real, Daniel said quietly. What we have, it's not about you, it's about us. Not about me? Sophie's voice rose. Not about me? You're my father. She's my best friend. How is this not about me? Because sometimes two people find each other, and it's not about anyone else, Maya tried. We didn't plan this. We didn't want to hurt you. But it happened, and it's real. And we can't just turn it off because it's complicated. So what, I'm just supposed to be okay with this? Except that my father is dating someone younger than me? Someone who was supposed to be like my sister? You're disgusting. Both of you. Sophie, Daniel's voice broke. Don't. I can't believe this. I can't. Sophie grabbed her suitcase. Where are you going? Maya's aunt's. Anywhere that's not here. Sophie, wait. Please, Maya moved forward, but Sophie held up a hand. Don't. Don't touch me. Don't call me. Don't text me. I don't want to hear from either of you. Sophie. Daniel tried again. You're still my daughter. I still love you, and apparently, you also love my best friend, so forgive me if that doesn't mean much right now. The door slammed behind her. The sound echoed in the sudden silence. Maya stood frozen, tears streaming down her face. Daniel leaned against the wall, his face in his hands. That, Maya said, her voice hollow. That was worse than I imagined. She hates us. She hates me. Daniel looked up. We knew this might happen. We knew she'd be angry. She'll come around, will she? Maya wrapped her arms around herself. Did you see her face? She looked at us like we were monsters. Maybe we are, Daniel said quietly. Maybe I am. You're not a monster. You're a man who fell in love. But she's right about one thing. You're my daughter's best friend. You're 19. I'm 45. The world is going to see this the way she sees it. Let them, Maya said fiercely. I don't care what the world thinks. I care what you think. What I feel. What we built together. Daniel crossed to her, pulled her into his arms. I love you. I love you so much it terrifies me. I love you too. So we fight for this. We give Sophie time. We prove to her that this is real, that it's worth it. And if she never forgives us, then we live with that. Daniel's arms tightened. I don't want to lose my daughter. I know. But I don't want to lose you either. Then we don't give up on either. We fight for both. The weeks that followed were the hardest of Maya's life. Sophie refused to answer calls, texts, anything. She stayed with her aunt and made it clear she wanted nothing to do with either of them. Maya went to class in a daze. She'd lost her best friend. And the guilt was crushing even as she couldn't bring herself to regret Daniel. Because what they had was real. In the midst of the chaos, in the pain of Sophie's rejection, Daniel became her anchor. He held her when she cried. He let her rage about the unfairness of it all. He never once suggested they should end things to make it easier. Instead, he doubled down. He took her to dinner. Public dinners where people could see them together. He held her hand walking through Central Park. He introduced her to his business associates as someone important in his life. He made it clear to everyone that this wasn't a fling, wasn't something he was ashamed of. This was a relationship. 1 week after Sophie had walked out, Daniel did something unexpected. He called a family meeting, inviting Sophie through her aunt. Sophie refused at first, but her aunt, bless her, convinced her to come. They met at a neutral location, a quiet restaurant where Daniel had reserved a private room. Sophie arrived with her aunt, her face hard, refusing to look at either Daniel or Maya. The Aunt Caroline was a woman in her 60s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She'd heard the whole story and had, surprisingly, not taken an immediate side. "Thank you for coming," Daniel said quietly. "I wasn't going to," Sophie said. "Aunt Caroline made me." "I'm glad she did," Daniel said, "because I need to say some things, and I need you to hear them." Sophie crossed her arms but said nothing. "I love you, Sophie. You're my daughter. You're the most important person in my life. You have been since the moment you were born. Nothing changes that." Sophie's jaw tightened. "I'm also in love with Maya," Daniel continued. "I know that's hard for you to hear. I know it feels like a betrayal. But it's the truth. And I need you to understand that loving her doesn't diminish what I feel for you. People don't have a finite amount of love to give. So I'm just supposed to accept this?" Sophie's voice was bitter. "Accept that my father is with someone my age?" "I'm not asking you to accept it right away," Daniel said. "I'm asking you to try to understand. Maya and I didn't plan this. We didn't want to hurt you, but sometimes life gives you something unexpected, something real, and you have to choose whether to embrace it or run from it. We chose to embrace it." Sophie finally looked at Maya. "And you? What do you have to say?" "I love him," Maya said simply. "I love your father, not because he's wealthy or powerful or can give me things, but because he sees me. Really sees me, because he challenges me and supports me and makes me want to be better. Because when I'm with him, I feel like I'm home. You betrayed me. I know it feels that way. And I'm sorry we didn't tell you sooner. But Sophie, I never stopped being your friend. I never stopped caring about you. This doesn't erase our friendship. It just adds something new to my life." "Something new?" Sophie laughed bitterly. "You're dating my father. That's not something new. That's something impossible." "Why is it impossible?" Maya challenged, gently. "Because of our ages? Because of what people will think? Or because it forces you to see your father and me as people with our own desires, our own lives, our own choices?" Sophie was quiet. "I trusted you," she finally said. "Both of you." "I know," Daniel said, "and we violated that trust by keeping this secret. That's on us. But everything else, the relationship itself, the feelings, those are real. Those are worth fighting for." Caroline spoke for the first time. "Sophie, honey, can I say something?" Sophie nodded. "I've watched you these past few weeks. You're hurting, and that's valid, but I've also watched your father and Maya together. I came here today ready to read them the riot act, ready to take your side completely. But seeing them, the way they are with each other, it's not what I expected. They're not hiding, they're not ashamed, they're just in love." "That doesn't make it okay," Sophie said, but her voice had lost some of its edge. "No," Caroline agreed, "but it makes it real. And sometimes real is messy. Sometimes real doesn't fit into the neat little boxes we want it to." Sophie looked at her father, really looked at him. "Are you happy?" "Yes," Daniel said without hesitation. "Happier than I've been in years." "And you?" She turned to Maya. "Are you happy? Or are you just caught up in some fantasy?" "I'm happy," Maya said. "I'm also terrified because I love you both and I don't want to choose, but yes, I'm genuinely happy." Sophie closed her eyes. "This is so messed up." "I know," Daniel agreed. "I'm so angry at both of you." "We know, but..." Sophie's voice broke. "You're still my dad. And you're still important to me." Daniel's eyes filled with tears. "You're everything to me, Sophie. Always have been. Always will be." "I'm not ready to be okay with this," Sophie said. "I need time." "Take all the time you need," Maya said. "But please don't shut us out completely. I can't promise anything. But I'll try." It was a start. A tiny, fragile start. The healing was slow. Sophie agreed to have coffee with Maya 2 weeks later. It was awkward, painful, full of long silences and carefully chosen words. But it was something. She had dinner with Daniel a week after that. Just the two of them, father and daughter, talking about things that had nothing to do with Maya. Slowly, carefully, they rebuilt what had been broken. By Thanksgiving, Sophie agreed to join them for dinner. The three of them sat at Daniel's dining table, and while it wasn't comfortable, while the tension was still there, they were together. That's what matters, Daniel said, looking at his daughter with such love it made Maya's heart ache. We're together. We're trying. I still think this is weird, Sophie said. But there was a hint of a smile. It is weird, Maya agreed. But it's also real. And it's ours. Sophie looked between them, seemed to really see them for the first time as a couple. Not as her father and her best friend, but as two people who loved each other. You really make him happy, she said to Maya. I do my best. And he treats you well? Better than I ever dreamed possible. Sophie turned to her father. If you hurt her, I'll never forgive you. If I hurt her, I'll never forgive myself, Daniel said seriously. And Maya, Sophie continued, if this ends badly, if this blows up, I'm still going to be here for you. Both of you. Because even though this is the weirdest situation I've ever been in, you're both family. Tears streamed down Maya's face. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Sophie said. I'm still processing. I'm still uncomfortable. But I'm trying. That's all we ask, Daniel said. By Christmas, Sophie had moved back into the penthouse. Though she insisted Maya keep the guest room when she stayed over, a boundary Maya respected. They found a new normal, the three of them. It wasn't perfect, wasn't without moments of awkwardness, but it was real. Spring came, and with it, Maya's 20th birthday. Daniel took her to Italy for a week, just the two of them, and it was magic. They explored Rome and Venice and Florence. They ate pasta and drank wine and made love in hotel rooms with windows open to ancient cities. On her birthday night, overlooking the Tuscan countryside, Daniel got down on one knee. Maya Santos, he said, holding a simple platinum band with a single perfect diamond. I know you're young. I know we have a complicated situation. I know the world will have opinions, but I also know I love you more than I've ever loved anyone. I know I want to spend my life with you. I know I want to build a future together. Will you marry me? Yes, Maya breathed. Yes, yes, yes. They married quietly that summer in a small ceremony in the Hamptons. Sophie was there, standing beside Maya as her maid of honor, and if there were tears in her eyes when she hugged her father, they were happy tears. The years that followed weren't always easy. People talked, judged, whispered about the age difference and the circumstances of how they met. But Maya finished college, started her nonprofit, built a life that was entirely her own even as it intertwined with Daniel's. Daniel learned to let go of some control, to be vulnerable, to accept that true partnership meant sharing power and decisions. They had their fights, their struggles, their moments of doubt, but they also had morning runs through Central Park, lazy Sunday mornings in bed, dinner parties where Maya charmed Daniel's business associates, and Daniel supported her charity work with his presence and his donations. They built something real, something lasting, something that defied every expectation and proved that sometimes love doesn't follow the rules we think it should. 5 years after that night on the balcony, Maya stood in the penthouse looking out at the city that had witnessed their beginning. She was 24 now. Daniel was 50. Sophie was married herself now, with a baby on the way, and had fully accepted their relationship. Life was messy and complicated and absolutely perfect. Daniel came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist, rested his chin on her shoulder. What are you thinking about? Maya asked. How you changed everything. How you walked into my life and made me feel alive again. How you taught me that real desire isn't just physical, it's emotional, spiritual. The desire to know someone completely and be known by them. You taught me that too, Maya said softly. You taught me what it means to be truly seen, truly valued, to be with someone who challenges you and supports you and loves you exactly as you are. We're good together, Daniel murmured. We are, Maya agreed. Sometimes love begins in unexpected places. In the space between 19 and 45. In the tension between friendship and desire. In the courage it takes to admit you want something the world says you shouldn't have. Maya and Daniel didn't have an easy love. They had a real one. The kind that required honesty and bravery and the willingness to fight for what matters. The kind that proved age is just a number when souls recognize each other. In the end, all that mattered was this. They found each other. They chose each other. And they built a life together that was worth every judgment, every struggle, every moment of doubt, because real desire, the kind that transforms lives, has nothing to do with following rules and everything to do with having the courage to follow your heart. If this story touched you, if you believe that real love transcends boundaries and expectations, subscribe to the channel now. Leave a like if you think everyone deserves to find someone who truly sees them. Become a member for early access to upcoming stories that celebrate love in all its complicated forms. And if this story really resonated with you, click the super thanks button. Your support helps us continue bringing narratives about the kind of love that dares to break the rules and build something beautiful anyway. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing.